Thanks again for listening in to Your Shadow Advisor, a weekly program about navigating higher education from a first-generation person of color perspective. I'm your host, Professor Daryl Wanzer Serrano. Those of you who know me personally or via social media know that a few weeks ago, well, a few weeks for you, dear listeners, a few days for me before recording this. Anyway, a few weeks ago, I found out that my remaining student loans were forgiven. $101,000 and change. Needless to say, I'm still a bit flabbergasted. Public Service Loan Forgiveness, or PSLF, is a program that began on October 1st, 2007, a few months after I completed my doctorate. From the beginning, the program was plagued with complications. For example, when it began, the program would count both incomes of a married couple to calculate the required income-based repayment, but it couldn't account for separate loans coming from each person. There was also unclear messaging for people who had already consolidated under a different servicer than was handling PSLF. Some of those problems were eventually resolved until the first batch of people reached their 10-year public service obligation and applied for forgiveness in 2017. 99% of applicants were rejected. Congress tried to address problems in 2018 with the Temporary Expanded Public Service Loan Forgiveness Program, or TEPSLF, which helped, but applicants still struggled because there was so much misinformation in the preceding decade. On October 6th, 2021, President Biden announced the temporary waiver that, and I'm oversimplifying a bit here, basically made it so that people like me, people who have been working in public service and making payments for a decade or more, but under the wrong repayment plan and or the wrong loan servicer, could suddenly get all of those payments counted toward the 120 required payments for the program. Even that program, however, was clouded in confusion when first announced, so much so that I gave up trying to fill out the application because it seemed like I still didn't meet the requirements. It wasn't until a friend with almost identical circumstances and payment records succeeded under the waiver that I got my materials in. 4 months later, the crushing weight of student debt has been lifted. All of this got me and my spouse thinking that there were probably a lot of other folks out there who, like me, had given up and hadn't given the PSLF temporary waiver a full go. So I really want to investigate this. I'm trying to get a real expert on this subject on the show next month to talk about the program and answer common questions. For this to work, I need some questions, and this is where you come in, dear listeners. What do you want to know about the temporary waiver and or public service loan forgiveness? Send me your questions on Twitter or shoot me an email and I'll add them to the list. Send in those questions as soon as possible. Unless legislation is passed, Biden's temporary waiver is set to expire at the end of October this year, 2022. So that's it for today. The official first episode will air August 24th. In the meantime, if you have a question, send it to questions@yourshadowadvisor.com or head to the website to submit an audio question that I might air on the show. Until then, please subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever app you use. And if you're feeling up to it, leave us a 5-star rating and a review. Thanks again for listening in. I'll be back with a final quick message next week.